Voices Beyond Pages. This is Lokasenna, a poem from the Poetic Edda. Aegir, also called Gymir, prepared ale for the gods after he had acquired the great kettle, which has been told of. Odin came to the feasting with Frigg, his wife. Thor did not come, since he was out east, but Thor's wife Sif was there. Bragi came with his wife Idun. Tyr was there as well. He was one-handed because Fenrir had bitten his hand off when he was chained. Njord was there with his wife Skadi and his children Frey and Freya. Vidar, son of Odin, was there. Loki was there. And so were Frey's servants, Vigvir and Bela. There were many other gods and elves as well. Aegir had two servants, Fimafeng and Eldir. Shining gold lit the hall, and the beer served itself. It was a great place of peace, and everyone praised how good Aegir's servants were. Loki could not tolerate hearing good things said about servants, and so he killed Fimafeng. Then the Aesir shook their shields at Loki and shouted at him, and drove him out into the forest, and went back to drinking. But Loki came back, and in the darkness outside he met Eldir. Loki said, "Tell me, Eldir, before you take another step forward, what are the gods sitting in there talking about over their beer?" Eldir said, "They are comparing their weapons and judging their readiness for war. Of the elves and gods sitting inside, not one is your friend." Loki said, "I will go into Aegir's hall and see this feast. I will bring them slanders and rumours, and mix their mead with misery." Eldir said, "You know that if you go into Aegir's hall to visit this feast, bringing slanders and rumours to spill out on their floor, they will wipe those words right off on you." Loki said, "You know, Eldir, if you and I were to compete at exchanging insults, it would be lucky for me if you said too much." Then Loki went into the hall, and when the feasters saw who had come in, they went silent. Loki said, "I come thirsty into this hall, I, Loki, after a great long road, to ask the gods to offer me just one drink of their famous mead." "Why are you so silent, you proud gods? Why do you say nothing? You ought to show me to my seat at such a feast, or else order me to leave." Bragi said, "The gods will never show you a seat at this feast. The gods know what company they want to share a happy evening's drinking with." Loki said, "Do you remember, Odin, when in bygone days we blended our blood? You told me then that you would never taste a drink that was not served to us both." Odin said, "Get up, Vidar. Let this father of wolves take a seat and have a drink. Let's not let Loki slander us here in Aegir's hall." Then Vidar stood up and served Loki a drink. Before he drank, Loki said, "Hail, gods and goddesses, all the high and holy Aesir, except for that one god who sits furthest down the bench, that one there, Bragi." Bragi said, "I will give you a horse and sword. I offer you these freely, and a ring, but in exchange, please don't slander the gods. Don't awake their anger." Loki said, "Since when have you had a treasure or a horse to give? Of all the gods and elves inside this hall, you're the biggest coward." Bragi said, "If we were outside and you had not come inside Aegir's hall, I would be holding your severed head. I'd pay you back that way for all your lies. Loki said, You are brave while you're sitting, but you wouldn't do that. Bragi, you bench warmer! Go ahead and strike me if you're so angry. A brave man wouldn't be afraid to do it. Idun said, I beg you, Bragi, think of your children, by blood and by adoption, and don't slander even Loki, even here in Aegir's hall. Loki said, Silence, Idun. I don't think there's any woman more lustful than you, not since you wrapped your pretty arms around the killer of your brother. Idun said, I will not slander even Loki here in Aegir's hall. I will calm you, beer-maddened Bragi. I don't want you two to fight. Yevun said, Why should two gods exchange insulting words here inside this hall? I think Loki is a cheerful fellow. Everybody loves him. Loki said, Silence, Yevun. I remember that boy who seduced you into his bed. That handsome boy gave you a necklace, and you opened your thighs for him. Odin said, You're mad, Loki. Out of your wits. If you want to make Yevun angry, I think she foresees the fates of all living things as well as I do. Loki said, Silence, Odin. You always judge battles unfairly for humans. You have often given defeat to the better side when you shouldn't have. Odin said, You know, even if I did judge unfairly and made the better side lose, I know that you, for 8 years, lived on the earth down below as a cow in milk and as a woman, and you've given birth to children. I call that a pervert's way of living. Loki said, But people say that you practiced womanly magic on Samse, dressed as a woman. You lived as a witch among the humans, and I call that a pervert's way of living. Frigg said, You should not discuss your histories openly in front of everyone. Whatever you two gods went about doing in your younger days, that belongs in the past and should stay there, Loki said. Silence, Frigg. You're Fjorgen's girl, and you've always been lustful. Think of when you, Odin's wife, accepted both Vili and Ve into your embrace. Frigg said, You know, if I had a son like Balder sitting here with me in Aegir's hall, in the presence of these gods, I declare you would never come out alive. You'd be killed shortly. Loki said, You must want me to recount even more of my mischief, Frigg. After all, I'm the one who made it so that Balder will never ride home again. Freya said, You are mad, Loki. When you boast of your sins, I believe that Frigg knows everyone's fate, even if she never speaks of it. Loki said, Silence, Freya. You are not free from faults. I know you too well. You've played the whore with every god and every elf who sits in this hall. Freya said, You speak lies, and soon this kind of talk will cause you real trouble. The gods are angry at you, and all the goddesses too. You will go home friendless. Loki said, Silence, Freya. You are a witch, and have dealt out many curses. I hear the gods found you lying with your brother, and that you farted then, Freya. Njorth said, It is a small matter whether women sleep with their own men or others, but it's a surprise to hear such a sissy god talking here when he's born children. Loki said, Silence, Njorth. You were sent from the west as a hostage for the gods. The daughters of Hymir used your mouth as a urinal, and you've tasted plenty of piss. Njorth said, I had some good from that when I was sent from the west as a hostage for the gods. I fathered a son, beloved by all, considered a hero among gods. Loki said, Stop this now, Njorth. Control yourself. I will not conceal this any longer. I know that you fathered that son, Frey, with your own sister, and I expect you've done even worse. Tyr said, Frey is the best of all the gods in the holy halls of Asgard. He doesn't make girls weep, nor cause trouble for women. He frees captives from their chains. Loki said, Silence, Tyr. You don't know how to settle disputes between men. I'm thinking of your right hand, which Fenrir, my son, bit off. Tyr said, I lost that hand. You lost that son. We both suffered loss. Your son isn't doing well either. He remains forever in chains, waiting for Ragnarok. Loki said, Silence, Tyr, or don't you know your own wife had a son by me? You poor fool, I'll never pay you a penny in compensation for that. Frey said, I see that wolf sitting and drooling till Ragnarok comes, and you'll be the next one chained up, you evildoer, if you don't close your mouth. Loki said, You had to pay money to get yourself a bride, and you gave up your famous sword. When the giants ride to Asgard, you won't be able to fight. Bigvir said, If I had a noble family and the grand hall like Frey does, I'd beat this liar down to his marrow, break every bone and limb in him. Loki said, Who is this little fellow wagging his tail, scavenging for master's scraps? You're always in your master's ear, always twittering away while doing your mindless work. Bigvir said, I am named Bigvir, and all the gods and men say I'm brave. I'm proud to say that all the gods are enjoying their beer here. Loki said, Silence, Bigvir. You don't even know how to serve food to guests. And worse than that, I know that we can find you hiding in the straw when battles start. Heimdall said, You're drunk, Loki. Drunk to the point of foolishness. Why don't you control yourself? This kind of drunkenness makes every man say more than he means to. Loki said, Silence, Heimdall. In the old days, a miserable fate was assigned to you. You have to stand all the time, stay watchful all the time, as the guardian of the gods. Skadi said, This is fun for you, Loki, but you won't be speaking as a free man much longer. The gods will bind you to the rock with the cold guts of your own son. Loki said, You know, even if the gods were going to bind me to the rock with the cold guts of my own son, I was still first and last in the battlefield when we fought your father, Thiassi. Skadi said, You know, even if you were first and last on the battlefield when the gods fought against Thiassi, you will never be welcome in any home or other place where I have power. Loki said, You had kinder words to me when you were begging me to join you in your bed, but one expects as much when one speaks openly about such hidden shames. Then Siv came forward and offered Loki a drink of mead and said, Hail to you now, Loki. Take this drink I offer you, of our good old mead. Do this rather than find fault with me, alone among all the gods and goddesses. Loki drained the drink and said, You would be unique, Siv, if you actually were wary and unwelcoming to other men. But I alone know how you are unfaithful to your husband, Thor, and I was the one you slept with. Bela said, Listen, all the mountains are shaking. I think Thor is coming home. He'll close this mouth that's slandering all the gods and men. Loki said, Silence, Bela. You're Brigvir's wife, and you have plenty of other faults. There's no greater beast among the gods here tonight, you lowly milkmaid. Then Thor came and said, Silence, you sissy, or I'll let my hammer silence you instead. I'll knock your head off your shoulders, and then you'll be silent and dead. Loki said, Oh, Thor has come to the hall, but why are you making such a big show of yourself, Thor? I don't think you'll look half so daring at Ragnarok when the wolf swallows your father. Thor said, Silence, you sissy, or I'll let my hammer silence you instead. I'll throw you out of here into Jotunheim, and no one will ever see you again. Loki said, You'll probably never tell any human beings what you've done in Jotunheim. I remember when you sat trembling in a giant's glove. You didn't look much like Thor then. Thor said, "Silence, you sissy, or I'll let my hammer silence you instead. With my right hand I'll beat you, break every bone in you," Loki said. "I expect I'll live a long time still, even if you threaten me with that hammer. You thought Utgard Loki's food bag was challenge enough, and you left that contest still hungry." Thor said, "Silence, you sissy, or I'll let my hammer silence you instead. I plan to send you straight to hell, beyond the corpse gates." Loki said, "I've spoken to the gods and the gods' sons, said everything I dared to say. But it's because of you, Thor, that I'll leave. I know you, and you alone mean your threats. You made beer, Agir, but you'll never again host a feast here. Everything you own will burn up, and you will feel flames on your back." Concerning Loki. After this, Loki hid in the falls of Frenanger in the shape of a salmon, but the gods caught him. He was tied up with the intestines of his son Nari, and his son Narvi was turned into a wolf. Skathi took a poisonous snake and tied it up over Loki. Poison dripped on his face from its mouth. Loki's wife Sigyn sat there and caught the poison in a jar, but when the jar filled, she had to empty it, and when she did, poison dripped on Loki's face, and this hurt him so badly that he trembled, and all the world with him. This is what is called an earthquake. This was Lokasenna, translated by Dr. Jackson Crawford. Lokasenna, or Loki's taunts. In Lokasenna, a clear picture of the trickster figure Loki appears. Having been cast out of a feast of the gods for killing a servant, Loki returns to the feast and offers insults to each god and goddess in turn. He is tolerated because Odin has made an oath never to drink without Loki present. Loki's insults are sometimes phrased in surprisingly explicit scatological terms, and his insults towards the goddesses are invariably of a sexual nature, as are the insults that he and Odin trade with one another. Note that many stanzas, especially Loki's, begin with "you know." This is a fairly common opening to stanzas elsewhere in the Edda as well, but here it may also be intended ironically, since much of what Loki reveals of the gods in decency was probably concealed from the other gods prior to this disclosure. Finally, after Loki has slandered everyone present, Thor appears and threatens Loki into leaving, and we learn at last how Loki was punished for insulting the gods by being chained beneath a poisonous snake dripping venom on his face. The prose sections are original to the manuscript. This is Balders Draumar. Once, all the gods met for a conference, all the goddesses met for a conference, and the mighty gods talked about why Balder was having bad dreams. Odin stood up, that father of the gods, and he saddled his horse, Sleipnir. Then he rode down to Hel, till he saw the dog of Hel. The dog had a bloody chest, and it barked a long time as Odin passed. Odin rode on, the stones of the road rattled, till he came to the high house of Hel. Then Odin rode east of the door to Hel, and there he found the grave of a witch, and then the battle god spoke a spell till her corpse was forced to rise, and spoke, "Who is this man, unknown to me, who has brought me back to loathsome life? I was buried in snow, pelted by rain, drowned in dew. I was dead a long time." Odin said, "I am the road tamer, son of corpse tamer. Tell me news from Hel, and I'll tell you news from above. Whose arrival are these benches draped with straw for? Why is the floor all covered in gold?" The witch said, "The mead is brewed for Balder's arrival. A shield is placed over the fresh brew. All the gods are in suspense. I was forced to speak. Now I return to silence. Odin said, "Don't go silent, witch. I want to ask you more till I understand everything, and I want to know more. Who will be the killer of my son, Balder? Who will steal the life of Odin's son?" The witch said, "Hoth will bear the long spear that will kill him. He will be the killer of your son Balder. He will steal the life of Odin's son." I was forced to speak, now I return to silence. Odin said, "Don't go silent, witch. I want to ask you more till I understand everything, and I want to know more. Who will avenge Hoth's crime? Who will put Balder's killer on the funeral pyre?" The witch said, "In halls to the west, Rind will give birth to your son, Vali. He will avenge Balder when he is only 1 night old. He will neither comb his hair nor wash his hands till he puts Balder's killer on the funeral pyre." I was forced to speak, now I return to silence. Odin said, "Don't go silent, witch. I want to ask you more till I understand everything, and I want to know more. Who are the women who weep in longing, who throw their necklaces up into the sky?" The witch said, "You are not Road Tamer, like I thought you were. No, you are Odin, the aged god." Odin said, "You are neither a witch nor a wise woman. No, you are the mother of 3 monsters." The witch said, "Ride home, Odin. Feel triumphant for now, but you will come for a second visit when Loki breaks free from his chains and Ragnarok comes to end everything." This was Balders Draumar, or The Dreams of Balder, translated by Dr. Jackson Crawford. Balders Draumar is found only in the Arnamagnian Codex, where it follows the Harbesilolth fragment. It is preserved in various late paper manuscripts with the title Vegtamskvida, the Lay of Vegtam, which has been used by some editors. The poem, which contains but 14 stanzas, has apparently been preserved in excellent condition. Its subject matter and style link it closely with the Voluspa. 4 of the 5 lines of stanza 11 appear almost without change in the Voluspa 32-33, and the entire poem is simply an elaboration of the episode outlined in those and the preceding stanzas. It has been suggested that Balders Draumar and the Voluspa may have been by the same author. There is also enough similarity in style between Balders Draumar and the Thrimskvida, note especially the opening stanza, to give colour to Vigfussen's guess that these 2 poems had a common authorship. In any case, Balders Draumar presumably assumed its present form not later than the first half of the 10th century. Whether the volva, the wise woman, of the poem is identical with the speaker in the Voluspa is purely a matter for conjecture. Nothing definitely opposes such a supposition, as in the longer poem she foretells the fall of the gods, so in this case she prophesies the first incident of that fall, the death of Balder. Here she is called up from the dead by Odin, anxious to know the meaning of Balder's evil dreams. In the Voluspa it is likewise intimated that the volva has risen from the grave. The poem, like most of the others in the collection, is essentially dramatic rather than narrative, summarizing a story which was doubtless familiar to everyone who heard the poem recited.